with another Wine Bags. And today's a very, very big day for Wine Bags, and we're gonna get all into it. First and foremost, though, man, how you feeling?
Pretty good, man. Just yeah, did my Sound XYZ drop. So just came from a space hosted by them. And yeah, just trying to, fully recover from COVID. I'm like almost there, but not quite. So probably taking a nap after this. But yeah, I'm doing good. What about yourself?
Man, I'm good. Can't complain. It's Friday. Um, no complaints here. Weather's finally turning up. Sorry to hear about the COVID thing, man. That's a drag. I've gone through it a couple times myself, and with a big drop like this, I know you're on the circuit too. So very much appreciate the time.
Oh yeah, of course. I appreciate you inviting me and having me on.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we're gonna get into it. Anybody that's tuned in before, you guys will be familiar. We just kind of jump all over the place, but definitely want to talk about the music, and we'll try to throw in some maybe random off-topic things in there too. Um, but for those that don't know, so today Winebags had his debut, his Genesis Sound drop. It is available right now. You can just go to sound.xyz. I'm trying to get right in front of me. Here we go. 13 editions already, 0.005 ETH, so not a crazy price. And you got lots of cool things with it, and you got like a big story. I love it when you guys, when I see you guys, the artists attach like some background to this. But
Oh,
um talk about this one specifically, and we'll talk about some of the other content and the other songs that you created too. But talk about this one specifically and why this was the direction that you wanted to go as far as sound was concerned.
yeah, totally. So I actually ended up writing this right after sort of talked with one of the owners there, David, and got like a date to drop. And I wanted to do this one specifically for that. And also, this will be the first track that I'm uploading to DSPs under, like the Wine Bags moniker. And so I sort of wanted that to be like in tandem with this drop. And sort of like the theme of the song, too, is really leaning heavily on just trying to find like a different way to navigate, trying to make a sustainable living as a musician, and sort of what brought me to NFTs and has kept me here this whole time. So yeah, that's sort of the nuts and bolts.
Yeah, yeah, no, I get it. On the NFT side, so it's funny, I'm sure you've answered this question before, but in finding NFTs, like, do you think I think there's an interesting kind of dynamic where a lot of people are like, yes, I will use NFTs and Web3 as part of my toolkit, and then there's also the dynamic of like, okay, I'm just gonna go all Web3. Do you have do you think Web3 can be sustainable in that way or no?
Sorry, my dog is she just had surgery and she's trying to lick her.
It's all good.
I think we're good. Um, yeah, I mean, my career up to this point has been mainly as like a sideman for other people's projects, and I wasn't really digging where that life was going, or like just I felt sort of underpaid, overworked, and not really like even enjoying the work. So
Yeah.
like it just wasn't worth it. And okay, she's good. And yeah, so I actually started like the journey at like trying to be a full-time producer right around the time that I found NFTs as well. During, lockdown during COVID, I really just started putting all of my time into like trying to up my producing chops, trying to learn how to sort of mix my stuff myself.
Mhm.
And I was just, before I discovered Web3, I was trying to think of like how is this gonna like it's not gonna look that great. Like, best case scenario, I get some attention, but like, I get what 1 million streams on Spotify and won't be able to eat from that. So I mean, I did it anyway because I guess I'm stubborn and just like an idiot or something. But that I discovered NFTs are shortly after I started taking this really seriously and started listening on Clubhouse in like early 21, and realized that there was actually opportunity to make like some legitimate money here and also just make connections and be sort of at the front of a conversation that I foresaw a lot of people having in the future. So I sort of went all in, like, and I think like I just didn't see like a path to making those kind of connections or potential like financial gains uh going the web 2 route. And I don't really want to like tour, you know.
Yeah.
That's not really what I'm trying to do unless like the opportunity comes and it's, comfortable but I'm not really trying to go that route. So I am pretty much, you know, strictly web 3, although I am going to be like starting to upload stuff to Spotify and just have a presence outside of here. But yeah, I don't know if that answers the
Yeah,
question.
yeah, yeah, you get there, and so, basically, you do believe that this can be sustainable, on its own, which is cool. Like I said, there seems to be 2 dynamics with it, but I do love that you are working into the DSP sides because while there's not necessarily a large financial return, especially as you get started, without any, like, label resources or anything like that, I do think that, like, there's merits in that, and who knows what you can find from those types of opportunities, but even, especially not looking to tour, like, I think obviously, like, there could be things that maybe from the sync side of things that shows up that, like, can be on shows and things like that, so, um, I'm with
Totally.
it, man. I like looking for different ways. I hate it when it hence why I'm, like, on the NFT side of things too, right? So, uh, but I hate it when we get stuck in one way and like, "Ah, this is the only way we can do this," and so, like, I'm with that all the way. Um, I wanna commend you on a lot of your creation process and the content that you post. It's actually really enjoyable, and, one time I very much appreciate you uploading the content to Huddle In. Anybody that hasn't checked it out, Winebags has put up some good content, and then, like, I took one of the videos one time and had a little bit of fun with it, but, whenever you go and make your content or just the song creation process, it's curious to me because you always and obviously you cut the videos to make it look this way. You jump around relatively quickly. So I'm curious, do you already have something kind of premeditated or are you just freestyling in those types of videos?
Um, are you like referring to like the videos where I sort of break down my production process or like the AI sort of?
Yeah, more like when you're like making beats, you're like quick beat
Yeah.
6 or something like that.
So with those, I was sort of trying something out with those and ended up thinking maybe that was not the route I want to go. So I haven't been making them as much lately, but with those, it's a lot of me just leaving the camera running and like I'll just start producing like I normally would. And there's a lot of dead time where I'm just like, oh, that doesn't work, or I don't like that, and then a lot of like editing afterwards. So I think a little less in the moment than it might seem, when I'm uploading it.
Gotcha, gotcha. So, yeah, you take your time with it there. I got you. Also, there's a very from an aesthetic vibe, very heavy on the vaporwave vibes. Like, where does that come from? Like, I mean, obviously, like it's aesthetically pleasing to you, but is there an origin story behind that?
I just really like I got into just like the 80s aesthetic um sort of later in life. Like I grew up thinking it was super cheesy. And then I came around. I mean, I still think it's super cheesy, but like I really dig it. Um and yeah, I rely heavily on like synths and like drum machines. And I do like sample some drums too, but at the time that I was getting started, I was listening to a lot of like sort of 80s inspired music and sort of some newer stuff like Com Truise, who I guess I would sort of throw in that camp. Um, and yeah, I like the visual side of it, and I like that sort of retro slash future vibe where it's like can't really tell if it's from the past or the future, which I think is a cool thing.
Yeah, yeah, and I like that sound too. Like the heavy synth sound. It's fun. It kind of makes sense. Like that. in the 80s ish. Like, you used to hear that in all the old cinema, the dun 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 dun, like, uh,
Totally.
uh, you know. So yeah, I mess with that vibe too. It's funny. I said to my wife the other day because I play a lot of old 80s music too. And so my daughter will sing along to these songs and she's 6. And I'm like, either I'm doing something really good or really bad. I don't know which yet. So
Time will tell.
yeah.
That's
Um,
hilarious.
so speaking of childhood, I typically like when I get to talk to music folks, I like to ask, to give you some context here. I like to ask when you're a kid, usually, your musical influence comes from obviously proximity, right? So whether it's your mom, your dad, caretaker, brother, sister, cousin, something like that, where they might have played one song or one album that like even maybe 20 or 30 years removed from something, like you can still recite it. And mine for me is, back in the day, my mom used to play this old Mariah Carey tape. And so the song Someday, I still know it front to back. And I couldn't tell you the last time I heard it, but I'm curious what that would be for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's oh, sorry, well, did you say something else?
Nope.
Oh, sorry, I must have heard something else. My both of my parents are really, so my dad is actually, like, a classical pianist, although not professionally, but just, he went to music school when he was younger and then just sort of played recreationally, but very talented, and so is my uncle too, his brother, but both of my parents, they really only listened to sort of like classical music. And so I grew up, listening a lot to that and also listening to him play. Um, so in terms of like the music I listen to now, none of that really came from them. Although I still revisit some of that stuff. Like I really love like the French impressionists, stuff like Debussy and Ravel. And he
Mm.
used to play that. And that still just like really resonates for me in terms of just like the vibe and the harmonic movement, and I love the sound. But other than that, I don't really listen to much stuff that they listen to. And my best friend growing up was really into like hip hop and rap, and so I spent a lot of my childhood listening to that stuff with him and his brother. And it wasn't until I was in like 7th grade that I started playing guitar then, and then getting into like sort of more rock and like guitar centric music. Um, I feel like I just rambled and didn't fully answer the question, but
Well, I'm
there are,
curious, like the
yeah.
hip hop reference in there, like, is there any one song or album that sticks out in your mind?
I mean, I remember the first time I heard Illmatic by Nas, and that's still one of my favorite albums.
Classic.
The World Is Ours is one of those songs that I just can never get tired of. Um, and like the beat on that, like I think it was a sample by Ahmad Jamal, not Ahmad Jamal, Ahmad, blanking on his name right now. But anyway, it's yeah, that album I think really stands out to me.
Yeah, no, I mean, like I said, that's a crazy, I mean, it's a crazy one. It's a classic, right? So, like, I don't think anyone's gonna be mad at that answer right there. Um, Sticking in the same, like, you said 7th-ish grade is around when you started playing the guitar and whatnot. When did you know, like, for you that, like, music was your path, like, this is what you were gonna do?
Um, I would say probably around that time, although I was always really cynical about how it would turn out, even as a kid for some reason. But I still pursued it, and it was still something that I think it was the first time that I really, like, started getting attention as just, like, a person. Before that, I tended to sort of blend into the background, or it felt like it. And so I was like, I wanted to sort of chase that attention, like being on stage, which I don't love as much anymore, but I used to love playing shows and gigging, and, like, I loved being on stage. Um, so, yeah, I'd say around 13 or 14, once I started experiencing that and, like, feeling like it came sorta naturally to me, then I was like, I don't think I'd ever not wanna do this, you know?
Nice. That's great, man. That's really great that you're able to find that early and then like kind of pursue that.
Yeah.
Speaking of gigs and shows and whatnot, uh, I guess kind of a two-part question here. Do you have maybe a favorite venue that you've ever seen a show at, and also maybe a favorite show that you've ever seen?
Let's see. Favorite show. One of my favorite shows I ever saw, it was actually free. It was part of like a festival that was going on in Portland, and it was Flying Lotus. And it's funny because I saw him a second time, and the show was it wasn't that good. But the first one was just really like it was just energetic as fuck, and I love his style. That's one that stands out to me. Trying to think of what else. I mean, I'd say for favorite venue, probably Red Rocks is
Oh, nice.
definitely one of those places. Yeah, you're a Denver guy.
Yeah,
You've probably been there
what'd
quite
you
a
see up
bit,
there?
but
What'd you see at Red Rocks?
it's funny, like the show I saw is never something I would. So I went with my friend. My friend's a big Disco Biscuits fan, and so it was Disco Biscuits, but they were playing with the two of the drummers from the Dead.
Okay.
And so like the first set was just the Disco Biscuits, and it was fucking great. Then that set, it was really cool, but it was like, I don't know, 3 drummers on stage. It was a little
That's a lot.
little yeah, it's a lot of drums. But it was a really cool show. There was like a blizzard and there was lasers, so like the snow was coming down and the lasers were like shining through it. So it was a really cool just visual experience, and that's the only show I've seen there actually. But I'm sure you've probably been there a bunch or
I have, yeah, actually, it's funny, growing up, like, my parents' house is, like, 20 minutes from Red Rocks, and so it was
nice.
one of those things, like, I never realized, like, what a great venue it was until I moved out of Denver. Um, and probably and I tell everybody this, probably the coolest show I ever saw there is, Talib Kweli opened up for Beastie Boys.
Oh, very cool.
So that was a really good one. That's interesting though that when you saw Philo, like, the first time it was really good and the second time not so much. That's
The second time, it almost seemed like he kept like he would start a track and then he would just stop it and come out and start like banter. It almost seemed like he was sort of wasted a little bit, and it was like, yeah, a lot of it was just him talking, and I didn't really go. But the first one was just straight like dance beats, like just really flowed very well.
nice.
But yeah.
Yeah, I had one of those experiences too. I saw, Mos Def down here in Atlanta, one time and very clearly intoxicated in some way, shape, or form, and kept stopping the beats, talking, dancing, and I'm like, "Man, what are you doing? Like, go." So,
Yeah, and that one, the first one was free. I can't remember if we got hooked up or if it was just a free show. But then the second one, the tickets were like $40, and so it's like, man, if I would have known he was going to be talking the whole time, I probably wouldn't have paid the $40.
yeah.
But I'm a huge Flying Lotus fan, and he's a lot of my favorite musicians I found out about from like playing on his records, like Thundercat. And
Yeah.
I know he's worked with like Robert Glasper was another one of my favorites, and yeah, so, yeah, he's one of my favorite producers.
Yeah, and, everybody has good and bad days, so
Yeah, totally.
he's 50-50 so far, so
Yeah, I mean, I played some pretty terrible shows myself, so it happens.
yeah, so moving back into, like, the Web3 NFT side of things, have you done any sets, like metaverse sets?
I did a few, like, when I first started this out, and I've actually been like, I'm one of my goals for the next year is to get together a live set. I just finally, like, purchased Ableton specifically for that reason. And I was using like a trial version of it at that time, um, where they during COVID they were just offering like 3 months free, and I
Mhm.
could like keep extending that with different emails. So I was using it for free for a couple years there, and yeah, so I've done maybe 2 or 3 like live sets from the house. It's a little weird. Without, like, the real audience
Mm.
there.
For sure.
But at the same time, I became such a homebody during COVID that I was okay with that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a different energy. I mean, it is still cool that if you can get, like, the views, like, in a live streaming fashion, but I
Totally.
definitely get that it's a different energy, like, when I finally first got to go to I remember, so NFT NYC at the end of '21
Oh, yeah.
was the first time, like, I had seen live music since, like, all the lockdown stuff happened, and I was like, "Oh, I missed this." So,
What was it,
um
like, part of the NFT part, or was it just something
no,
unrelated?
there were some side events, and so, one of the really cool ones, there's a rapper in the space, he goes by Louis C. Rhymes, I don't know if you ever run into him.
I've heard the name, but I don't know him.
So he's a rapper out of Brooklyn, and then there's also another singer and rapper, her name's Anna Diorio. Anna set up this crazy, like I don't have a better way to describe it, it's gonna sound really weird, a unicorn bus, so it's a bus, like, dressed up as a unicorn with, like, speakers and a couch on top of it. And they pull up in front of one of these clubs where, like, all the cool people were going, I wasn't in there, um, and Louis opens up for spotty Wi-Fi up there.
Oh, very cool.
So that was really cool. We saw a few DJ sets at some other clubs and, like, a little bit of live music, and then not long after that, then I went to ETH Denver the next year, and I got to see one of the catalog events, and I was really late to this, but I saw Halik Mall and Hudson play, and, like, I don't know, it's really great seeing it live, and I'm kind of a junkie for that, like, I just sucker for live music, so
Yeah. Are you a musician yourself? I feel like I've maybe asked you that before, I can't remember, but
not a good one by any means. I'll get on the karaoke, but,
fair enough. Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not gonna be anything you like hearing.
Okay. Fair enough, fair enough. So just an avid fan then.
Yeah, yeah, I just follow it closely and, support and, try to bring things together, that kinda thing, so,
Hell yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I can't hold a note, but luckily for my daughter, like, she can sing already better than me, and she's only 6, so we'll leave it to her.
That's
Um,
hilarious.
Still on the NFT and Web3 side, I'm curious too, so, like, you said when you found NFTs, I'm curious, like, have you purchased many NFTs? Do you kind of indulge in the degen side of things at all?
Definitely not a huge collector. I have bought some, mainly like most of the stuff I bought is just like people I vibe with, when I'm on Clubhouse and I'm like, oh, you're a fucking crazy artist or musician. And like, I just, like I respect what you're doing. I definitely bought into like a few PFP projects I haven't really been much of like a flipper. I've made a few flips, but yeah, I don't feel like I have like the bandwidth or mindset to be like a really avid collector.
Yeah.
Uh, because maybe just because I put so much time into like trying to create and stuff that it's just doesn't come as naturally to me. But if I see something I really dig and I have like, the liquidity for it, I'll definitely do it. And just to like support people I enjoy and have, either helped me or taught me something or I just like them.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. It's
Yeah.
it's interesting because, like, from the artist side, I think there's some artists that collect a lot and then some that, like, do it casually and support like you described.
Yeah.
Um, but it definitely does take a lot of energy. I've collected a lot, and then, like, it gets to these things where, like, it's just impossible to keep up with everything that's out at any given time.
Yeah. That's the thing too, is like I can barely keep up with my own shit. There's so much going on every day. It's like it's hard to not have FOMO over everything.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, Speaking of, like, artists that you like or you like what they make and whatnot, do you have anybody maybe on a wish list on the Web3 side that you would like to collab with?
I mean, a lot of the people. Oh, are you talking about musicians or artists or both?
Either or.
Yeah. I mean, let me think about that. A lot of the people that I have really wanted to collaborate with, I have. Um,
That's
trying to
cool, by the way.
Um, whose art do I really appreciate? Vintage, not vintage Mozart. Yeah, vintage Mozart.
Okay.
is one who's does amazing 3D work. Am I getting that right, or am I it's something Mozart? That we actually talked about collaborating a long time ago, and just one of those things that never came to fruition. Um, who else am I a fan of? I'm a huge fan of Ishita Soul Curry Art. I don't know if you follow her.
I do. Yes.
Yeah, and actually I was like part of a group project with her that we did collaborate on, but I've always loved her style and sort of what she's all about. Um, in
Yeah.
terms of
Like
musicians,
Picasso-ish vibes.
yeah, totally. Kane Mayfield is somebody that, in terms of like hip hop, one of my favorite.
I love Kane. Shout out Kane.
Yeah, he's every time I hear him, I'm just like, dude, like, please keep going. Like, he can just go. Like, I heard him go in a space for 5 minutes straight. That I don't know if it's like totally off the top or just what, but it was just very in the pocket and just like really fucking good. And so I've been trying to sort of like collab with him for a bit. Hasn't really come to fruition. Yeah, I'm sure there's a bunch of people that I'm just not thinking about right now.
No,
But those
that's cool. I
some that
like you shout out Kane. I am gonna throw some shade on Kane. Pretty sure that's deep fake. That's not actually him rapping. He's just in the crowd.
that could be true, man. In this day and age, you never really know. So
No, shout out Kane. Big Kane fan, like I said.
yeah,
One more other thing before we're gonna plug everything and then wrap it up around here.
okay.
I see you using a lot of the tech, right? And I feel like you're pretty well diversified, tried a lot of different things. Like I said, whether it's like a smaller platform like us on Huddle In, over on Lens, see on Sound, obviously OpenSea, anything like that. Do you have any kind of like wish list as far as like what would you like to see done to make the artist experience a little bit better in terms of a release at this point?
Yeah, let me think about that. I mean, well, there's a couple things. I think having places that are that like Huddle In or Lens or Async that like you can post video or music content really easily on, I think is huge for me. But I'm really about like I think Async is a good example of like I just really like the tool set that they have created, especially for musicians. Like I don't know if you checked out Music Blueprints or no.
I have,
So
yeah, I've got
yeah,
a few of them. Yeah.
yeah. So I think like that kind of stuff really excites me, and it's a really cool way to like use the tech. But for somebody who, like me, who doesn't really know, how to write that code, although with Chat GPT and a year, I'd probably just fucking get it done. But yeah, I think just I think the big code to crack for music is like easy ways to consume the music on the listeners or collector side, like from the mobile, and like be able to like arrange stuff in like a playlist, or just have like the ease and UX of like a Spotify
Mm.
for stuff you've collected on the blockchain. I think would really push it forward for music. So that's sort of what I'm hoping and waiting for as a musician.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. It'd be cool, like, if they could get some sort of, I guess, a Spotify widget, if you will, like some of these
Yeah,
platforms that we have over here, then I could just hop into my Spotify and do it. I know there's all sorts of nuance with, like, the legality of things like that, but
totally.
yeah, that would be cool. Um, well, I wanna make sure everybody knows too, so everybody, tuning in either now or after the fact, we've got this open edition live drop from Winebags on Sound XYZ. The song is called "Different Way." It is open for the next almost 5 days. We're just,
Mhm.
we're like an hour and a half into the drop being live. 13 or, 0.005. Let's see, let me refresh here. There had been 13 that I saw. Let's see how we're doing. And I think that's where it is. Yep, 13 right now, so it's off to a great start. Everybody, Winebags has got some really cool kind of like extra add-ons that you can see on here. Read the copy on here. If you happen to get the golden egg, he's gonna hook you up in all sorts of ways. I was listening to the space earlier. that if somebody wants access to the stems for a remix or what, I guess whatever.
Well, actually, the stems will be for anybody who collects if they just reach out. So,
even better.
yeah, the golden egg is, unless whoever gets that doesn't want to do it, I will be like mentioning their names in the title of the track when uploading to DSP's sort of feature, like the collector is part of the experience,
And that's cool. And I think that's, to be honest, like I think that's a really great way to drive kind of fandom, if you will, because people like to get involved. And so, if it's a relatively low lift way for you and you find other people that connects with, then like, hey,
yeah, 100%. Yeah,
I
it's
won one of
easy
the
as hell for me. I just type a few things on my keyboard and good to go. But yeah.
so I won one of the golden eggs like early on in the sound days, and one of the artists said like, "Hey, if you win the golden egg, I'll name a track whatever you want to name it." And I was like,
Oh shit.
"That's cool." So
What did you end up or have you
I
taken?
did. So I gave my daughter's name.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. So
Who was that?
Ten Snake.
Okay. I don't know. I don't know if I know them. I'll have to check them out.
Like an electronic artist.
Okay.
To be honest with you, I didn't know him before that, but like it was a cool enough feature. I was like, "Hey, I'll give it a try," and then like I got really lucky. So
I love that. I like that. That's fun stuff too, to like sort of get collectors involved with like the process.
yeah, agreed. And I think there's this overemphasis on quote unquote utility where I think artists put a lot of time into it. They're like, well, what should I do? What's going to mean a lot? And like, if I were to say it to anybody, I'd be like, look, it's cool to think of utility, but I think it needs to be in a relatively low lift way for you because you can't break your back over this sort of thing. So
yeah, and that's also, I was having a conversation yesterday in a space with Black Dave, and he brought up the point that I think is really like, that's always something you can add later too. Like that's the thing about these tokens, is like you can set up something whenever to add that if something comes to you that. So I don't think about it much in the moment,
well, even to add to that, right? Like it's just one of those weird human psych things that like if you were to surprise somebody with a drop or with some sort of utility later on, they're going to be like, "Oh my god, this is amazing." Whereas if you promise it up front and you can't deliver, they're going to be like, "Ah, we hate you."
Yeah, I'm really glad I never like sort of promised big things, because it was tempting when utility was a big thing, but I'm like, I don't want to be tied down
Yeah.
to something. Who knows? Like, what if this drop doesn't do well, but I'm still beholden to do all these things? Or yeah.
Yeah, I think it's better to surprise. Maybe have some things in mind, but
Totally
keep them close to the chest, kind of thing. But I'd like to leave the floor with you. Whatever you want to sign us off with, it is all yours. Tell everyone where they can find you and any message that you got for anybody listening now or after the fact.
awesome. Yeah, well, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate you reaching out. And yeah, I mean, you can check me out in a bunch of places. You can check me out on Huddlin'. I'm on
Hey.
Lens. I got a couple Manifold contracts. I'm on Sound. I'm on Async. Got some stuff on the OpenSea shared contract, which was, sort of how I got started. And yeah, I mean, right now I'm really sort of pushing the sound drop. So if you go to sound.xyz, it should be one of the first things that you see there. Super cheap. Yeah. That's probably it.
Pick up a couple, give one to your friend.
Hell yeah.
Great, all the things here. So Winebags, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate the time. Good luck on the drop. Digging the art. I haven't got to listen to the song just yet, but I will. Anybody check him out at Winebags. Follow us on Huddle In. If you haven't downloaded the app, it's super easy to get started. Check it out in your app stores. And until the next time, thank you everybody for tuning in now or later. Peace.
Thanks again.